very, very competitive front row on that grid. And all in readiness now for the start. The first one again, won by Craig Trinder, Steve Trinder second, Dennis Ireland third, Rodger Freeth fourth. All of those riders will be wanting to consolidate the points that they have on the difficult and testing circuit. Good start from Gary Goodfellow. Away very, very quickly indeed. Steve Trinder behind him. Steve Trinder right on his way back to me in third place. Gary Goodfellow, I'm sure, will want to make up, Brian, for his misfortune in the first leg.
Well, he certainly will, but he's got some very heavy company alongside him with Steve Trinder, who just overshoots a little bit there, and Rodger Freeth back in around about 6th position. Craig Trinder, our earlier heat leader, is back about 2 or 3 riders behind him. But there's Gary Goodfellow with a very, very sizable lead already as they go down onto the lakeside part for the first time. 12 laps, heat 2 of the WINS Motorcycle Series for Formula 1 bikes.
Gary Goodfellow, obviously he's just come out from riding production bike for his previous race, and he's really hot. He's got everything going for him at the moment. There's been other races in between the first leg and now the second leg, and the circuit condition has deteriorated with a new surface over beside the lake. It's starting to break up, and of course it's very, very difficult if you've got slick tyres, because it ends up being sort of almost on a ball-bearing surface. Very dangerous indeed. However, Gary Goodfellow's aware of all this, and he's going for it. Try and get as much of a lead or build up as possible.
Gary Goodfellow from Steve Trinder, Dennis Ireland, Rodger Freeth coming up through the pack there. We imagine hoping to get a little closer this time before the race gets too old and somebody has a substantial lead.
Certainly puts Steve Trinder in a good position at this stage of the game, already having notched up a second and still running second on the road, but Goodfellow's overshot again, and Steve Trinder, the Australian 500 champion, has gone into the lead.
There's Goodfellow, you can see what he lost. About 10 or 15 metres back at the next corner after that, so Steve Trinder with the lead. Gary Goodfellow in second place, Dennis Ireland in third, where he finished the first leg. Looking back now for Rodger Freeth. Goodfellow has the work in front of him, and Steve Trinder's done it.
Looked like the front wheel slipped out from underneath him there, but obviously the hay bale's certainly doing their job there. And Steve Trinder slipping out, so Gary Goodfellow back in the lead. There's Rodger Freeth running in the top runners. And in second position, I think it looks like it could be Robbie Dean, and if it is, this is a standard GSXR 750 Suzuki. Gary Goodfellow's superbike leaping all over the circuit there. That is 38 Robbie Dean in second position.
Definitely the front wheels let go, and I think it appears that it's a patch of new surface there that could have unstuck.
Looking for Steve Trinder. He's still being attended to on the ground there. He's obviously taken a knock. Let's hope that's the last of the day. We've already had one very serious injury here today. Potentially dangerous, this circuit. That is always a feature of street races. There are always parking meters and lampposts and rather immovable objects to hit.
Certainly Gary Goodfellow doing a good job there, Tony, on the GSXR. Robbie Dean on the production model, and there's Rodger Freeth on the Macintosh Suzuki up into third position now.
That's incredible for Robbie Dean to be up there on a bog standard production bike.
Certainly it is, and first of the New Zealanders, with Goodfellow being an expatriate Kiwi, now from in Canada. 9 laps remaining now. Robbie Dean still holding down second behind Gary Goodfellow.
There's Goodfellow, there's Dean. Freeth. Rodger Freeth trying to pick up Robbie Dean. We already know from past years at Wanganui how clever Robbie Dean can be. Even on a production bike with more competitive machinery around him. Steve Trinder seems to be okay. Just from the pits that he is not yet standing up, but seems to be conscious and okay. Now a little more when the ambulance man had a chance to check him. While Robbie Dean's still hanging in there. A little bit slippery for him.
He's a man that's been around motorcycle racing for a long time. In fact, it goes back to the mid-70s when he was very spectacular riding an 850 Norton Commando. Graham, you will remember Robbie Dean's efforts in those days.
I remember, yes, I ended up locking handlebars with him one day and we both ended up on the ground. So Robbie and I have had both fair share of experience as far as locking handlebars.
Gary Goodfellow starting to pull out a more substantial lead now. Lost that lead with a minor mistake, then Steve Trinder went off and he retook it. Rodger Freeth still trying to pick up Dean. The gap getting smaller between Dean and Freeth, while Goodfellow pulls out more of a lead. Just look at how much these three have pulled out from the rest of the field. Really getting spread now around this road circuit. It's Eddie Kattenberg. Fourth place, having a dice there.
Craig Trinder and then back to Dennis Island. So Craig Trinder's with the win under his belt. And in behind 21, Eddie Kattenberg. There's Kattenberg and Trinder in behind him.
Craig Trinder's being a little bit cautious in light of having seen brother Steve go into the hay bales.
Yes, he possibly will be. There's Kattenberg taking quite a wide line through there. Purely only a matter of time, I would think, before Craig Trinder actually gets by Eddie Kattenberg, although Kattenberg's a very, very strong contender.
And as many riders have said in the past, very hard to pass. Second and third, Dean Freeth. Rodger Freeth still not making a great impression on Robbie Dean. He pulled up quite a substantial gap that was between them in the space of a couple of laps. And he hasn't improved on it since. Waiting to make his move in a straight line. Having a go at out-braking Dean. And Dean's got the line.
Robbie Dean on the production GSX 750 Suzuki and Rodger Freeth on the 1100cc Suzuki. Quite a considerable distance in horsepower on these two bikes, and Freeth obviously on the heavier one. Robbie Dean, I would think, out of the two would be having an easier ride, but then having Rodger Freeth tucked up your exhaust pipe certainly doesn't make life that relaxing.
Have a look at the width of Rodger Freeth's knees. Very, very tall man, about 6'2" or 6'3", and quite slim. He's called Super Frog because of the way he sits on a bike. How he manages to tuck himself inside that fairing on fast corners is beyond me when you see how far the legs stick out on the tight and twisty bits. Still trying very, very hard to get past Robbie Dean. Back at that gap to second and third. Gary Goodfellow's not pulling out any more than he had 3 or 4 laps ago. Rodger Freeth having another look.
Freeth comes up the inside there now, but Robbie Dean just wheels across in front of him.
Well, it's not a surprise at all to see Robbie Dean up there. He has been riding tremendously well in the past 4 or 5 years on these street circuits. He's experienced, he's a good rider, and he may look dangerous, but it's very, very rare that he's actually ever crashed. Oop. Well, very rare, like I say.
In fact, we've seen him have some horrible wobbles and even hit hay bales and get the back end of the bike 2 foot offline and still come out of it upright.
He's got an amazing recovery rate.
This is the leader, Gary Goodfellow, the 1985 Canadian 750 production champion and runner-up in the Superbike Championship in but his 3rd season of road racing.
5 laps remain in this race. 5 laps for Rodger Freeth to get past Robbie Dean. He's really not not making a lot of impression. Everything he's tried so far has not worked. Meanwhile, those two should slow themselves down a little in comparison to Gary Goodfellow at the front. This is where Rodger Freeth had to go last time. He's not even going to try this time.
Both these riders are keeping very, very clear of the white lines, and I think in an earlier race we saw an FZ 750 end up on its ear just because the front wheel was on those white lines. Very treacherous, especially in these sort of conditions.
In fact, we've seen 2 or 3 bikes go down with the rider getting on the brakes when the front wheel was right on a white line. Anybody who's ever ridden a motorcycle in the wet will know how treacherous white lines can be, but even on a fine, sunny, hot day like today, they can be a great deal more slippery than the rest of the surface. Obviously, somebody else is still down.
On a circuit like this, Graham, what sort of slick tyre, what sort of compound would perhaps somebody like Rodger Freeth be running on?
Well, the thing is, the wheels are probably never on the ground, so they don't heat up, and that's the big problem. You know, you're not getting any temperature in there, so they'll be running fairly, well, I would imagine, soft tyres just to try and get that traction. But like I said before, the wheels are very, very rarely on the ground. They just seem to bounce from the top of the bumps to the next tops of the bumps.
It was only a matter of time before Rodger Freeth found the right place to get past Robbie Dean, which he has done, and he now has the job ahead of him to try and catch Gary Goodfellow. I think it might be a mountainous task. I'm just wondering whether or not Rodger Freeth managed to make that passing manoeuvre when the yellow flags were out or thereabouts. Perhaps one rider being a little more cautious than the other. We wouldn't accuse him of passing under yellow flags, but it may have been around that time when Robbie Dean slowed down.
Well, Rodger knows the rules very, very well in regards to passing under yellow flags. So I don't think it would be something like that that would have given him a break. I would imagine that Robbie Dean possibly could have run wide on one of those corners.
Of course, the penalty for passing under a yellow flag is immediate disqualification. The riders must retain their original positions until they get past the incident. Rodger Freeth, number 2 in second position. There's our race leader still, letter A, Gary Goodfellow from Vancouver, Canada.
And Rodger Freeth is closing on him. Rodger Freeth has picked up the pace a little. There's Freeth through now. And 3 or 4 laps to go. The gap between Goodfellow and Freeth. Freeth at that stage was behind Robbie Dean, was quite substantial. Having got past Robbie Dean, Rodger Freeth is now on the chase for first place.
Well, let's put the stopwatch on the gap between Rodger Freeth and our leading rider.
It was 3.7 seconds, and it's now down to around 2 seconds.
Gary Goodfellow shuffling his way through the lake area there on the Suzuki. Brilliant start. Just a little fellow standing around about 5'7" in height, but certainly very, very enthusiastic about anything to do with motorcycle racing, and I would think a good future lies in front of Gary Goodfellow. He's continuing on next year to contest the Daytona event in March in the United States.
Rodger Freeth has dropped off that catching spree. He's back now again to about just over 3 seconds, having got into the back markers. Two laps left in the race of the 12. There's Freeth going through now. Looking back to Craig Trinder behind Robbie Dean. Robbie Dean in 3rd place. Craig Trinder just about to go past him, and he does. Trinder underneath Dean. So Craig Trinder's up to 3rd place.
Down into the braking area comes Freeth on the Macintosh. And there's our new 3rd place man, let us see, from Australia, 4th in this year's championship, Craig Trinder, the man who won the opening heat of the Formula 1 class earlier on this afternoon.
Just going through that finish order in the first heat again for you. Craig Trinder was 1st, Steve Trinder 2nd, Dennis Ireland 3rd, Rodger Freeth 4th. And the points for each heat are 20 for 1st, then 19, 18, 17 and on down.
Trinder in amongst amongst the tail enders. This is obviously going to be a little bit of a problem for him through here, and he'll be picking his way through here very, very carefully, and certainly doing as much as he can to protect that third place. Up through the inside of one of the lap riders.
Coming up now to get the white flag. Rodger Freeth through. So Gary Goodfellow was on his last lap, as is Rodger Freeth, and now Craig Trinder as well. There's our race leader, Gary Goodfellow, letter A. Lapping back markers within 11 laps. And this is the last run along the lakefront for him. Weaving through and up to the right-hander, and I don't think that Rodger Freeth is going to have enough space to get close enough. Here comes Goodfellow now. Unless he makes a major mistake, Rodger Freeth is going to stay where he is in second place.
Of course, this race counting toward the Bryan Stadium Memorial Trophy, which is being contested here in Hamilton in memory of a former New Zealand captain for the road race team for the Isle of Man.
So Goodfellow doing it very, very tidily in the last part of the last lap. And we'll come around this time up to the hairpin, hard right, and up to the checkered flag. Let's just have a look at the gap back if we can, as Goodfellow comes up to take the checkered flag. Gary Goodfellow wins the second heat. As we look back, there's Rodger Freeth. He closed the gap quite well. And Trinder coming through in third place.